Hey guys, it's Amy, and I am here with my December reads of 2023. These are the books that I finished the year out with. Let me know in the comments what you read in December, and let's get into the list. Now, first up, I'm gonna do a little bit of a shameless plug. We did a Christmas reading live stream where I read a few Christmas classics, and if you need to get some more Christmas vibes before the year is over, or you haven't gotten enough of it yet and you want a little bit more of that, or you just want to cram in some more books really quickly in like a couple of hours, go and watch the Christmas reading live stream. But they're pretty short, but there were 3 books that we read. I read them, so I'm gonna add them to my list, but it is How the Grinch Stole Christmas, of course, by Dr. Seuss. The Nutcracker by E.T.A. Hoffman, and this is the more original Nutcracker story. It was like kid book form. There were pictures, really beautiful art in it, but it is a fairly lengthy story. It took me a little over an hour to get through the story on the stream. And then number 3 is The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. If you want to cram a couple more books in, you can go and check that out. But those were some of the last books that I got in December. Now, number 4 on my list was a 3-star read for me. It is a contemporary romance book with holiday vibes, and that is Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. This was a fairly spicy book for me, but it was a heartwarming romantic holiday story. It is about a woman who owns a Christmas tree farm with a couple of business partners, and she enters a competition in order to get some social promotion for her business. And she put on her application that she runs it with her boyfriend because she thought that it would be more romantic. But she doesn't have a boyfriend, but she does have a best friend, and they have to fake date, and the chaos ensues from there. It was a really cute book. Again, this was a 3-star read for me. So if you like contemporary romance with holiday vibes, this was a good book. Number 5 on my list was a little bit out of my comfort zone for me. It was a mystery book that I gave 3 stars, and that is The Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson. And this was a really quick audiobook. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours. It was a really fast read, but it was a really intriguing and crazy mystery story. It is about an American who goes to college in England, and how she ends up going to a friend's house for the holidays, and there's like a murder mystery. There's multiple POVs, but it is crazy, twisty. I don't want to give anything away, but if you enjoy mysteries and you want some spooky mystery holiday vibes, this was a good book. Number 6 on my list is another 3-star read for me, and that is Sword Catcher by Cassandra Clare. This was my first Cassandra Clare book, and this is an adult fantasy that she put out in 2023. And I personally didn't care for the book overall. The first half of the book, I was really into it. It definitely is an adult fantasy. There are some adult themes, and there are some spicy things in the book, and some controversial topics. But I was really into it the first half, like 50% to 60% of the book, and then it just kind of got into a rut, a lull. I just felt like the dramatics and the politics weren't really adding to the plot and moving things along. And there wasn't enough magic for me in the book. It was almost like until the end, there was really kind of a hold off on the magic. It was like this mysterious thing that we don't really understand or talk about, so nobody uses it. There are sprinklings of it's like intros to each chapter or the end of each chapter where like the narrator is like describing the lore that the magic is based on, which, if you know anything about Suleiman, it is based around that story. If you've read anything by like S.A. Chakraborty, she deals with like Suleiman and like gods and goddesses and that sort of thing. So it explains a little bit of what the magic is based on, but the magic isn't really happening until further on in the book. And I'm like, this is a fantasy, but there isn't a lot of magic. But it's like, okay, we're going to put it in at the end, and that's going to push you towards the sequel. And I was just like, I don't really like that. Overall, it was a 3-star for me. It was a good book, but it just wasn't a favorite of mine, and I don't really see myself being interested in reading the books to come in the series. So that's just my opinion. Now we're getting into some 4-star reads, and this was a middle grade fantasy that takes place around Christmas, so holiday vibes, and that is Greenglass House by Kate Milford. This was a really interesting book. It is a series, but I feel like they're kind of like standalones that happen in the same world. But this is about a boy who lives with his family at an inn that they run. It's this pretty big mansion that has these green glass windows, and it's about the mysterious guests that come and stay during the holidays, and he thinks his Christmas vacation is ruined, but he ends up being on this adventure mystery with another character in the book, and it is a really interesting book. It's fairly complex, I think, for a middle grade book. I found it really interesting. I'm a 32-year-old woman. I still enjoy middle grade books that are on that level where they're challenging, they're compelling. It definitely felt like you're a kid solving a mystery and it's Christmas. I mean, what's not to love? It was a 4-star read for me. Number 8 on my list was another 4-star read for me, and that is A Boy Called Christmas by Matt Haig. Matt Haig has written a few middle grade books, and I know he's also known for his adult fantasy, The Midnight Library. This was my first book of his that I read, and there is also a movie on Netflix that is based on the book. It's very different from the book. The bones of it are still there, but it is very different. So if you've watched the movie, expect a lot more detail and things to be really different in the book. It is a really sweet Santa origin story. It is pretty heart-wrenching at times. There are some sad things in the book. There is some violence in the book. So for a middle grade book, it can be pretty intense sometimes. But if you want holiday vibes and Santa Claus origin story, it takes place like in Finland and of course like North Pole area. But it just really has interesting lore, and it is a very unique Santa origin story. So again, this was a 4-star read. I feel like 4 and 3-star is about where I stayed this month, but this was probably my favorite book of the month. But it was a 4-star read for me, and it is number 9 on my list, which is Murtagh by Christopher Paolini. My husband and I read through the Inheritance cycle or the Aragon series by Christopher Paolini, and this is sort of like following up to that series. It is dealing with a great character from the series and his story and what goes on with him afterwards. I don't want to give too much away. It can be pretty brutal sometimes. It is a YA fantasy, but there is some trauma in this book. It's like memories and then actual present day trauma. It's a lot sometimes, but it is a really, really good book. It was really a unique experience because my husband and I actually read them aloud. I would tend to read and he would listen. He's more of an audiobook person than I am, but so listening works for him. But it was my first time reading through Inheritance, and so it just happened to work out that we read it and then Murtagh came out, so I was able to get all of the goodness of that world. And Murtagh had all of the magic and conflict, just It had all the good things that I love from the series and had a really interesting villain that is just straight crazy. There's some cult things going on in the book. So just be prepared for that. But it is really, really good. Again, it was a 4-star read for me. Number 10 on my list was a 3-star read for me, and it is a contemporary romance with a little bit of magical realism, time travel, and that is In a Holidaze by the duo writing team Christina Lauren. I just found out recently that it was 2 people coming together and creating a name and writing these books. This was my first book by this writing team. It's sort of like the movie Groundhog Day, but if it happened during Christmas. And you're following the female main character whose name is escaping me right now. She is repeating her Christmas holiday with, it's her family and also like family friends. It's very like a found family kind of vibe. And they are coming together at this cabin where some of their friends live, and they've been going there for years. But something happens, and she was like, universe, let me know what can make me happy. And the universe decides to make her repeat this holiday over and over again. It's a really interesting kind of time travel. It's very funny. It is spicy. There is charged language, if you want to say that, and there are some spicy scenes in the book. So just be aware of that. It's an adult contemporary romance with Christmas holiday vibes, and it was a 3-star read for me. It was a lot of fun. Next up was a really special read for me because I've gotten some advanced reader copies, some ARCs this past year. That was something that I just started towards the end of the year. But this was kind of my first like bigger title book that I received an early copy of. And it was a 4-star read for me, and that is Emily Wilde's Map of Other Lands by Heather Fawcett. I really enjoyed Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by this author. So this is the sequel to that book, and I got it through NetGalley. I really, really loved this book. It had the same wonderful characters, our main character, Emily, of course, and the love interest, Wendell. And we had a couple of other characters that were added in that I thought really added to the story and just made it more fun and brought a little more controversy and conflict to the book. But it had the same wonderful writing format of the journal entries that Emily does. And you're going on the scholarly adventure into the Fae world and dealing with the crazy magic and shenanigans that go on. It just had all the wonderful things. I enjoyed it as much as the first book, so I would definitely recommend it. And it is coming out in January. Definitely check out this book. I really enjoyed it. It was a 4-star read. Now, number 12 on my list, the last book of this list, is another holiday Christmas book. Obviously, that is the main thing that I enjoyed in the month of December. And it was a 3-star read for me. It is Tessa and Weston, The Best Christmas Ever by Abby Emmons. Abby Emmons is a creator here on YouTube. She is an indie author. She has some really great videos about writing and how to get started on your book, and even getting into like the nitty-gritty details of plots, and she gives you a lot of tools and everything. So definitely go check her out. But this was her YA contemporary romance book that takes place during the holidays, during Christmas. And this is sort of a sequel to her first book that deals with these characters. I think you can read this book without having read the first book, but just know that this relationship is already kind of established, and they're just dealing with the conflict of dealing with the holidays and dealing with family and things like that. It is very like cutesy, and it is a very like cozy kind of book. It does deal with some issues of family, and I know that that can be difficult for some people, especially like holiday related and things like that. There's also some disability representation in the book. It is a very cutesy YA romance. It can be cheesy at times, but if you really like that, I think that you would enjoy this book. It was a 3-star read for me. It wasn't my favorite book, but I'm not the right demographic for this book, but I thought it was pretty good. So if you like that sort of thing, go check that out, and then definitely check out the first book, 100 Days of Sunlight by Abby Emmons. So that is the first book with the Tessa and Weston characters. So go check that out. But guys, that is my list of books that I read in December. If you are still wanting some holiday vibes, go and check out these books. If you want some fantasy, there's some of that in there as well. But let me know what you read in 2023 in December. What were your favorite books that you read? And if you are still trying to cram in some of the holiday vibes, let me know what you're reading to get some of that. I don't want Christmas to be over. I don't know if I'll read any more Christmas books, but I'm just hanging on to those holiday vibes. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.